What up, folks? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X-Lair to provide you my reaction thoughts, interpretations of what we just saw with the 14th out of 18 episodes of Twin Peaks: The Revival Season 3. We got a lot of information this episode. Is it important information? Maybe. Is it going to actually lead to something substantial? Maybe. We'll see. So there's a lot to go through. So I'm gonna I'm gonna use the actual video that I watched so that I can get some perspective on the various segments, because there were a lot of them and they were related, but also they were not related. All right, so I'm looking at the first scene. The first scene was Gordon calling the sheriff's station. First, he talked to Lucy, which was really funny. And then he talks to the sheriff. And that's when the sheriff gives him the information about the missing Laura Palmer diary pages that mentioned two Coopers. And that information was relayed to David Lynch, and he processed it. Then we went to the Gordon and the rest of the FBI folks, including Diane, scene where they were in that room and they had that weird kind of old technology behind them, but it looked new, but it looked old as well, like this weird kind of FBI technology, and Miguel Ferrer, the other FBI agent, I keep forgetting the names. Anyway, he's telling the woman FBI agent, this new inductee into the Blue Rose Project, about a couple of things. Well, actually, no. He's talking specifically about the fact that Gordon himself was involved in a situation with David Bowie's character, which is, I think, Douglas Jeffries, I think his name is. They were involved in a situation where there was a woman that was a double, and then one of them died in this interaction with Gordon, and so it sort of establishes like a link to the present for Gordon, going back to his past. So like it's starting to put the pieces together of like the relevance of his partner, himself, the things that they've encountered when they were part of the Blue Rose Project, that sort of bled into what we know to have happened in the original Twin Peaks series, also in the Fire Walk With Me series, and now in this new revival. So it's starting to come together. Things are starting to become clearer. Gordon was very much entrenched in the weirdness of Twin Peaks before Twin Peaks ever happened, before he was ever part of Twin Peaks. And there were some insights into the fact that, like, again, like one of the women disappeared, and then the other one claimed was being put on trial for murder, but she claimed she was innocent. Basically, establishing that there was a good one and a bad one. There was a doppelganger, like there is with Cooper. So it's all kind of starting to give us nuggets of information leading to the ultimate sort of resolution of this dual Cooper situation. Anyway, there was a lot of kind of seeds of that, but nothing really explicitly given. We didn't even see Cooper, nor Dougie Cooper, nor Doppel Cooper. We didn't see any of them this episode, except in this weird kind of vision thing that I'll mention. But anyway, so this scene was interesting. The most interesting part, of course, was when Diane revealed that Janie, Dougie's wife, is actually her half-sister, and that they're strange, but like that ring that was found inside of the Colonel's stomach was basically a ring that Janie gave to Dougie. and that's where the connection came in. So now we know that that connection exists. Gordon has instructed the FBI office to contact Dougie or find Dougie, and so it's now going to come to a head. Finally, the connections are starting to become solid, and the characters are starting to gravitate towards each other. So ultimately kind of getting us to, you know, whatever this is culminating to, right? Like whatever this is going to end up resulting in, which I'm sure will be very cool. Anyway, so that whole thing happened. That was really intriguing, but by far not the most intriguing stuff. Oh wait, no, there was, okay, so I'm looking at the video. Okay, so there was that mention by Gordon of that dream that he had, where Maria Bertolecci, I forget, it's an Italian actress, is talking to him and says something about the blue rose, and then said something about a dreamer being in a dream and staying in the dream. Anyway, that led to that vision of Gordon of really a scene from Fire Walk With Me. That scene where David Bowie comes in, and now I totally forgotten about this scene, but like I remember now because it was so fleeting and it just felt so nonsensical. But obviously there was a lot of significance to it. Like I remember David Bowie coming in and then I think disappearing. But at one point he did point to Cooper and say, this person is not who he appears, or something along those lines, right? Sort of foreshadowing the present now, what's happening now. But we know that he had disappeared initially. So David Bowie's character had disappeared. And so this is like a reemergence, but not really. So it established a little bit more of a link between the current weirdness and the weirdness that we saw in Fire Walk With Me that just felt arbitrary and just completely absurd. But, you know, it's still nothing concrete. Like, we haven't gotten anything, like, super concrete as far as, like, an answer about what's actually going on. Anyway, but Gordon does mention that information seems really important now. Like, basically, like, telling the audience, like, hey, I needed to show you this scene again so you remember how important this is. And how it may play a big role in what's to come in the last 4 episodes that might end the series, or at least tie up a lot of this stuff, or at least reveal a lot of like the story that he probably ultimately wanted to tell about Twin Peaks and what was happening in Twin Peaks and why shit was strange, essentially. Anyway, so we had that scene and I really enjoyed it. Nothing really too odd with it. I like that one moment where where he contacts that FBI director, or the head, or whomever he contacts in Las Vegas, and then the guy in Las Vegas looks up Dougie Jones and says, "Oh, there's like 24 Dougies in Las Vegas," and then the other guy's like, how are we going to find him? And the guy gets pissed off, like, I've told you a million times, like, we're the FBI. And it's like, it was an absurd moment of just intense emotion for no reason whatsoever. And I loved it. It was very much what I expect from this show. Anyway, so then we move on to that scene in the sheriff's office, Twin Peaks Sheriff's Office. We have all our principal characters. They are initially arresting that corrupt deputy who helped to get rid of, presumably, the Harper kid, that demon child, asshole, terrible guy that killed that kid. Not Harper, Horn. Potentially a Horn child. He helped to get rid of like the confession that chick that survived the attack by the demon guy. I don't know people's names, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so they put him in prison, and whatever, and then they finally go to the forest to follow the instructions of Bobby's father, and that's when shit got super weird, right? We see another vortex at that one spot that I think the coordinates led to. And unlike the vortex that Gordon saw that showed him the Shadow Men, this one led to the fireman, what we now know to be the fireman, the tall man that used to be a vision for Cooper, who's played by Lurch from the Addams Family movies of the 90s. And then we see that Andy gets taken into that place. Oh wait, first they find that eyeless lady who was part of Good Cooper's journey back into reality when he went through that crazy sort of situation where he was like falling through the sky. So what happened? First he fell through the floor of the Black Lodge, and then he fell onto this weird platform through like space. And then he found that lady inside that building, inside the platform, and then she took him to some weird place that led him into that box in New York where that demon had come out of. Anyway, that lady that was kind of like half talking and not really, like she is now in reality. She has also transcended this weird interdimensional plane. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on, but it's like a weird place, and she got out of it. So this weird person is now outside, and he's taken up to where the fireman is, where we now understand, well, we understood to be from episode 8, like the sort of protectors of like our reality against these demon aliens, whatever they are. Who sent Laurel Palmer down to try to curtail Bob's progress or something. I don't know. To be like kind of the yin to his yang, maybe. His Achilles heel. I don't know. Anyway, so he tells Andy a bunch of stuff. He basically shows him a lot in that vision, up in that oval window. He shows him a lot about like sort of like the what we saw, a lot of stuff from what we saw in episode 8 with the Shadow Men showing up and kind of the birth of Bob. And then I remember, and then that scene of that girl running through the hallway, which was like one of the first scenes we ever saw in the show, when it became like in the very first episode of the show when it was revealed that Laurel Palmer was dead. And I think that was communicated to the student body. And I remember the opening shot of that sequence was like this girl running through the halls, and it was very haunting. And we saw that, and then we saw Laurel Palmer, and then I think we saw that, like that weird kind of ghost-like demon thing that we saw come through that box in New York that stabbed out the face of that guy that was monitoring and that girl that he was hooking up with. We saw that thing in there. And then, yeah, I'm like getting lost because there was so much information. And then, what else did he see? Okay, he saw a vision of him and Lucy, which is kind of weird. And then everybody winds up, and then we go back to reality, and then he shows back up in reality, and he's holding that girl, and he's being very cogent, like more sort of focused than he's ever been as a character, and says that they need to take care of this woman, and she's going to be very important. And then the other characters say that they don't remember what happened, and then we leave the forest. And then we go to the police station. We see this eyeless woman in the cell, safe. And then we get that whole absurd sequence where she's doing her... But it sounds like kind of like a monkey. And then we see the deputy, and then this other drunk guy who's like leaking some sort of fluid, blood maybe, an ooze of some sort. I don't know. And it all kind of gets absurd for a bit, and then we move on from there. Now it might be relevant, the fact that this guy is like oozing, or like just there's something wrong with the guy, because it seems as though something's going on now in the entire town, and maybe what we saw in the episode a few episodes back, where Bobby had that crazy sequence when the lady was honking, and then that kid was like kind of acting all weird like a zombie. Maybe that is some effect that is happening to people in the town. Maybe like these forces that were birthed, that gave birth to Bob, were like sort of a harbinger of some greater dark force that's like starting to bleed into our reality, and now actually starting to affect a lot of people in the town. I don't know. I'm starting to put these pieces together in that way, maybe. Anyway, so we got that scene, and then we got and then we got that interesting scene with James in the dock. We find out that James is a security guard at the lodge, and he's like just hanging out with this other kind of younger security guard who's like a British apparently, and he's wearing like a green glove, and he's like crushing nuts. And at first you just think, okay, this is going to be like another Audrey Horne type of situation. Like, we're going to get some James, but it's going to be completely unrelated to anything that's been happening. But no, that's not what's going on. We have this kid who was in England, and he was taken, I think he met the fireman, and then the fireman told him that he's going to get this glove that's going to make him basically like a superpower being. He's going to get super strength in one hand because of this glove, and that it's his destiny to go to Twin Peaks. And so that's why he came to Twin Peaks, and now he's in Twin Peaks, and he's got a hand, this like powerful hand that was given to him by the fireman. And so it's really compelling, this whole story. And then we see James go into the building to check the furnaces, and then we get a whole sequence that was straight out of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1. Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street, the original series, when Nancy and some of the other folks were having dreams of going to the boiler room. It was basically that. Like, it was the boiler room from Nightmare on Elm Street. And the way the sequence was shot was very eerie, kind of scary, kind of like, okay, this is James in Nightmare on Elm Street. That's just sort of what it felt to me. And then, like, he sees a door, and then nothing happens. Anyway, then we cut away from that to a completely different scene, right? That scene in that other bar where Laura Palmer's mom is at, and it's finally revealed that there is something fucking inside of her, and it's fucking evil and crazy. She takes off her face to that one dude, and we see that we saw that monster inside, that again, that shadow, weird sort of monster that came out of that box in New York that killed those people. I think it was inside of her. Or a version of that, or some other one of those. I don't know. But it like bit off that guy's neck. That was a really fucking cool scene. And she didn't realize what was going on. So she is fucking possessed by some fucking dark force. Or one of these interdimensional demon whatever the fucks. Like, I don't know. But I really liked that sequence. It was really cool. And then after that, what did we get? We got we got that bar, and then I think directly afterward we go to the bar that we always see at the end, and we see two people talking, and again it's like two people we haven't seen before, I'm pretty sure, and they're talking about things that seem completely unrelated, but then the story is told about this guy who like jumped a 6-foot wall, and he had like blood oozing out of his mouth, and he came into their house, and it seemed like he was gonna attack them, but he just left anyway, and then nobody's seen that guy since. So again, like another kind of weird occurrence in the town involving blood coming out of a guy, and I don't know, maybe it's more information about the fact that like there's something spreading throughout this town amongst the residents, and it's fucking them up. And then we get a really cool musical performance, and the episode ends. It was a really great episode. Really enjoyed it. Really moved the story forward, and And it's exactly why we got those a couple episodes before where it was like David Lynch kind of fucking with the audience, because he knows that this is what we wanted. He knew that he was going to give it to us, and there's more to come, but like in the middle, like we should just kind of take a deep breath and enjoy the weirdness that is the Twin Peaks experience. So this whole thing is like this again, like I've said before, and I'll keep saying, it's like an 18-hour movie. Once it's all done and you watch it all together, it's going to have this really lovely fucking flow to it, and I cannot wait to do that, actually, because it's going to be really cool. Anyway, another great episode. Can't wait for the last 4. It's bittersweet because it's going to end, but I cannot fucking wait. I am at the edge of my fucking seat with this shit. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Thanks for checking out my channel. If you haven't already done so, you can subscribe right there. And as always, I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already, put an X in that box, folks, because ain't nobody checking me. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.